Hey, what's up? Jeff Lerner here. Hello to all my YouTube subscribers and fans out there. I appreciate you so much supporting these videos. And in this video, we're going to be talking about debt, how to pay off debt. We're going to be looking at the two most common methods that the gurus out there, the talking heads, the money experts, that they talk about for paying off debt. We're going to actually be comparing them. I'll be sharing with you my personal opinion about which one makes the most sense, which one's the best. And we're going to be talking about how to get out of debt as quickly as possible. If you are new to my channel, this channel is all about sales, marketing, and entrepreneurship. You know, at the core of what I teach and what I believe is that life is meant to be awesome, and that we all have the tools and we can acquire the skills to go out into this world and create an awesome life. But at the core of a lot of that for a lot of people is like, how do I pay for it? How do I get ahead financially? Man, if I could just solve the money problem, all these other problems would be so much easier to solve. So we do talk a lot about business, and in particular, having our own business, kind of taking matters into our own hands and getting off the hamster wheel of college and student debt and get a job and do the job and climb the ladder and 40 years later hopefully retire, 401k, pension, that whole grind. We kind of try to break that mold, because the world we live in, there's these incredible opportunities out there, but we got to be smart. And so this channel is about hopefully raising all of our games together. So we're going to talk about debt. We're going to look at the top 2 strategies for paying off debt. If you're new to my channel and you think this all sounds interesting, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Make sure to click the little bell so you get notified as new videos come out. And without further ado, let's dive into the debt conversation. All right, so let's talk about debt and paying off debt and the best way to do it. So I've got a fancy little spreadsheet here, and I'm going to compare with this spreadsheet the two most common methods of paying off debt that are typically taught by the financial gurus. One is called the debt snowball. The other is called the debt avalanche. And to briefly explain those, basically the debt snowball says start with your smallest debt by dollar amount, pay it off, then go to the next smallest dollar amount, debt by dollar amount, pay it off, and the next smallest, and escalate up from there. So you think of a snowball, as the snowball rolls, it gets bigger, right? So you pay off the smallest, and then that allows you to grow to the next biggest, to the next biggest. So it's like a snowball getting bigger. The debt avalanche kind of takes the other approach. It says start with the heaviest debt, meaning the debt that has the highest interest rate, and pay that off, and then drop down to the debt that has the next highest interest rate and pay that off, and the next highest, and so on. And you think of an avalanche. When an avalanche breaks loose, it's the biggest at the beginning. The big giant chunk breaks loose, and then as it falls, it kind of spreads and fans out. And in that way, you think of it for purposes of the metaphor, the interest rate is getting lighter and lighter as you pay it off. So the snowball starts with the debt that's the smallest by dollar, and the avalanche starts with the debt that's the heaviest by interest rate, and they both work in sort of opposite directions. Of course, it depends on your debt. Some people may have debt that's higher dollar amount, lower interest rate, higher interest rate, lower dollar amount, combination of the two, and so on. So, but ultimately it comes down to the math, which is a better mathematical approach. And I already know the answer, and I'm going to show you the answer rather than just tell you the answer. I'm going to kind of demonstrate the answer. But then we'll talk about, given the answer being what it is, why is it that everybody's not just in agreement about which of these methods is best? Why is there even any discussion on the matter if one of them is just mathematically more efficient than the other? We'll talk about that. And then I'll give my opinion about kind of why, how I think about this type of stuff. And so what I think is the best for people to do. But let's start with some actual numbers. It's like if you remember in math class, the word problems are when you really understood or demonstrated your understanding of the material. In the same way here, using an actual example is going to make it a lot easier to illustrate this. So hypothetically, I've just kind of picked some numbers out of the air. And if you've been through some of my other YouTube videos where I build spreadsheets, you know that red values, those are the inputs. Those are the values that we manually input to drive the formulas and the calculations in the rest of the spreadsheet. I will give a copy of this spreadsheet that, like I always do, that if somebody, you can you can access it and you can copy it and create your own version and play around with it. I'll provide that in the description below this video. But so let's say that you earn $4,000 after tax monthly income. So that would be that'd be $48,000 a year after tax. So maybe anywhere from $60,000 to $70,000 pre-tax income, probably kind of a, normal lower middle to middle class income in the United States anyway, depending on what city you live in. That can vary widely. But anyway, so $4,000 per month after tax income. And let's say your base living expenses, your non-debt related living expenses are $2,500. Now, for most people, that number may vary. Or for many people, that number may vary because you could say, well, I have my housing expense is debt because it's a mortgage. In which case, you would just simply plug that into this spreadsheet, create a line for that calculation, and the same principles would apply. But for simplicity, I've created 3 imaginary debts. One is a credit card, one is student debt, one is a car note. And so we basically take the after-tax income, subtract the fixed living expenses, and that tells us how much money we have left over to pay towards debt. And then in this case, we've got a $25,000 credit card bill at 22% interest. Now, different credit cards calculate their minimum payments different ways. And in fact, it sometimes even varies month by month, depending on what percentage of your allowance you're actually using on the card, or if you've been late on a payment, they might change it. But kind of a general rule is to say anywhere from 2 to 5% of the total balance will be the minimum monthly balance or the minimum monthly payment. So I just use 2%. And on a debt, if you pay 2% of the starting amount per year, obviously the balance goes down. But basically, that comes out to roughly paying off the debt. If you only make that same payment every month, you'll pay off that debt over the course of 12 years. So basically, at $25,000 at 22%, paying $500 a month, which is 2% of the starting balance, if you just held that same payment, you would roughly pay off the card in 12 years. So for purposes of the spreadsheet, I'm treating your credit card like kind of like an amortizing loan, like as if it has a 12-year term, even though technically credit cards are what are called revolving debt, and they don't actually have an installment term that you have to pay them off in. But we can talk about that in another video. Anyways, so student debt, student debt typically is installment debt. It typically does have a fixed term. So standard is 10 years. There are some programs with the federal government where if you have above a certain amount of debt, of student debt, you can refinance it out to, I want to say 25 years. But gosh, if that's your situation, I don't know. We have a whole other conversation we probably need to have. But and I hope that you make a lot of money because of that college degree that you got. Anyway, so we'll use a standard 10-year student debt term and a balance of $15,000. Interest rates on student debt typically do run anywhere 4 to 6%. So we're using 5% interest rate. The minimum payment on that, or the fixed payment on that, in that case would be $159. And then we're using a 5-year car note, pretty standard, 8%, also fairly standard, $10,000 balance, $202 minimum payment. So those are the minimum payments. You have to make those payments. Again, the credit card one would vary a little bit over the life of the card, but we're just going to use 500 for ease of discussion. So basically then we have here the total amount that you're forced to put towards debt. So out of the $1,500 that you have available for debt payment, $861 of it is tied up in making these fixed monthly payments, which leaves $639 extra that you can allocate towards the debt of your choice. So if you're going to go towards the Snowball method, then you're going to put it towards, and I've stacked the debts here in order based on the method. So for debt Snowball, you would put that extra $639 first towards the car note because it has the smallest balance, then towards the student debt note, then towards the credit card. And if you're using the debt avalanche method, you're going to do it the other way around. You're going to put it towards what has the highest interest rate, which is the credit card, then towards the car note, which is next lowest interest rate, and then towards student debt. So basically then we are going to use actually a different spreadsheet that we built in another video, which I will also include a link to below, to calculate the effect of taking this extra money and using it to do what's called a prepayment to pay off debt faster than what's forced by the required monthly minimum payments. And before we do that, the first principle to kind of understand about these prepayments is we're going to start. We know that we have an extra $639 to pay towards the debt. So we're going to start with that as our additional payment. So in the debt snowball method, we're going to be paying the car note. We're going to be making the monthly minimum payment of $202. We're also going to be making an additional payment of $639. Now, as soon as we're done doing that, then we now free up. There was $202 a month going towards the car note, but as soon as we pay off the car note, we now have that $202 available to also pay towards the student debt. So what that means is after we pay $639 for however long it takes, and then we're now free of the car note, we can now take that $202, add it to the $639, and now pay an additional $841. Then at the end of the $841, we'll have an extra $159 that's freed up because we're no longer having to pay the minimum on the student debt, and we'll be able to pay $1,000 toward the credit card. So what we're going to do now is we're going to say, okay, for each of these debt items, let's see how long it takes to pay it off with this additional payment. And thankfully, in a previous YouTube video, we actually built a spreadsheet that allows us to calculate that. So coming over here, we're going to take this first debt, which is $10,000 at 8% on a 5-year term. So let's plug that in, $10,000 at 8% on a 5-year term. And we're going to also prepay $639 per month, every single month at a prepayment interval of 1. And then we're going to basically look at this loan balance and we're going to go to see where it goes to 0, what month. Okay, so if we do this, we will actually pay off what would have been a 5-year car note, we would pay off in month 13. So we'll write, okay, 13 months to pay that off. Then we'll take this debt of $15,000 at 5% interest, which is spaced out over a 10-year term. And we now have a prepayment amount of $841 per month because we got the $639 plus we freed up the $202. So using an $841 prepayment, we see that the loan balance hits 0 in month 16. So it took us 16 months to pay off that loan. And then using a 12-year term, 22% interest rate on $25,000, we'll go calculate that amount. 12-year term, 22%. And we have $1,000 to go towards the payment. We see that that's now paid off in month 21. Okay, so now let's add up these 3. And we see that in 50 months, we were debt-free using the debt snowball method. So now let's do the same thing for the debt avalanche. If we start at $25,000, 22%, 12 years, so the same, and $639 out of the gate, then we are free of this debt in 29 months. At which point we have $1,139 to go towards our car note, which is 8%, 5 years, $10,000. So we actually knock that out in just 8 months. And then at that point we have a $15,000 debt, 10-year term, 5% with $1,341 extra. And that we're able to knock out in 11 months. And we add those up and we see that we paid it off 2 months faster with the debt avalanche. Now, in fact, this is not a perfect example. And if you're fairly sophisticated with financial math, you might have been looking at this saying, well, hang on, this isn't exactly representative because technically the secondary and tertiary balances are decreasing over time as you make simply the minimum fixed payment. So by the time you actually go to attack them, the beginning balances are smaller. That is true. But in fact, you notice how the subsequent payments are so much higher in the debt avalanche example because you knocked out this credit card balance first. That actually only would have accelerated and slightly widened the improvement between the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. It only would have further affirmed the theory, which is that mathematically the debt avalanche is always more efficient way of attacking debt than the debt snowball. And it makes sense because interest is wasted money. So you want to pay off the debt faster that's wasting the most money because then you waste the least money, which by not wasting it means you're actually paying down the principal or the value portion of the loans, in which case it stacks up faster if you can knock out interest faster. Kind of a confusing way of saying that it just makes sense. Pay off highest interest loans first, and mathematically you pay off your total debt the fastest. So why do people actually even bother suggesting that the debt snowball is a superior approach? The reason is because of human psychology. And frankly, as somebody who owns a marketing business online, I am very much attuned to this aspect of human psychology, which is that we as human beings respond very well and draw inspiration and motivation and momentum from what we call in marketing and in finance, small wins. That when you win a battle, however small, it propels you forward to bigger wins. And by attacking the smallest debts first, mentally, you're fighting a smaller battle, so you're going to get the win faster in most cases. And psychologically, that's going to propel you forward with the discipline of continuing to fight the fight and winning the subsequent bigger battles. And so this example illustrates that pretty well. And granted, this had as much to do with the balance of the loan as it did of the interest rate, but it still makes the point that in this case, you actually got your first debt paid off in 13 months. And with the Avalanche, it actually took 29 months before you were actually free of that first debt. Now, as you can see from there, because you did the hard work first of the highest interest rate, you dramatically accelerated your pace. And in 19 more months, you were free of everything. In fact, even slightly less than that. Whereas in the first example, you got that first win in 13 months, but you still had 37 more months ahead of you to get the next two wins. So the debt avalanche, in most cases, because more of your initial payments are going towards interest, which means your principal balance is decreasing slower. Typically with the debt avalanche strategy, it's going to take longer to get that first debt, whatever it is, knocked out. Psychologically, a lot of financial planners and financial gurus and pundits have decided that that's bad because most people, most consumers, most just human beings in the modern economy don't necessarily have the discipline to persist when they aren't getting that reward of feeling like they're getting things accomplished, right? So they say, look, even if it's a little bit less efficient, do the thing that you're more likely to stick with. It's kind of like dieting, right? If you want to lose weight or you want to get in shape, you can work out with a lot of intensity and you can restrict your food a lot and you'll get in shape faster. But most health people, try to take the approach of saying, well, we don't want to push you too hard because then you won't stick with it. So we'll do something that's a little more gentle that you'll be more likely to stick to. Well, here's where I differ from a lot of people in this regard. Although in terms of health, I actually think it's good to do it in a way that you're more apt to stick with. But with money, I think that one of the key financial principles one of the key principles of really, really successful and effective finance is discipline. And it's being unemotional about money. In fact, you could say it another way. Most of the bad financial decisions, most of the financial dysfunction in this world actually comes from having emotions, being emotional around money. And so I think it's different from health. Look, we have emotions around our health. Our health is deeply intertwined with how we feel. In fact, our health is actually, in many ways, the creator of how we feel and how we think. So it's probably not realistic to say, let's have no emotions attached to how we look and how we feel. and how, how our bodies are, because our bodies are actually the source of emotion. So, okay, I agree. Take it easy, be gentle on your diet. Don't work out too crazy. Don't burn yourself out. Take a more relaxed approach to health and wellness so that you'll be more likely to stick with it. But I don't think that it makes a lot of sense. I don't think it's prudent to counsel that same attitude with money. The fact is, being emotional in the first place is actually the stepping stone to all the financial dysfunction in this world. So to say, well, let's take a financial approach that's rooted more around how people feel, I think is actually compounding the problem. The bottom line is the debt avalanche is smarter. It's better. And I don't think that any of us should be giving ourselves permission to say, well, I want to do the slightly less smart, less good thing with my money because of how it feels. That's not fair to your children. That's not fair to your grandchildren. That's not fair to yourself. That's not fair to your partner, your spouse. That's not fair to the charities that you could help if you had more money. That's not fair to, it's just not right. I just don't think it's prudent. So, that's my attitude. And maybe I sound a little harsh or a little mercenary about it, but I will say, as a long time, decades long now student of success, having surrounded myself as much as possible and as intentionally as possible with really, really successful people in business, I can say they don't take financial strategies that play to their emotions. They remove their emotions from their financial strategy. And to the extent that I've tried to emulate that, most of my success in this world in business and finance has come from becoming less emotional about money. So again, that's my position, why I think the debt avalanche is the superior approach, in that saying, oh, we'll do the snowball because you get that small win and you feel good. I just think that that's setting ourselves up to continue to have a dysfunctional relationship with money, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to get my head right and I'm going to do the smart thing for a change. Because if I was doing that all along, I wouldn't have a big debt problem in the first place, right? So call me mean, call me a bully. I don't know, but you can't call me wrong. So, all right. I hope this has been valuable. I'm gonna, like I said, put the links below the video to these spreadsheets. Feel free to leave me comments. Let me know if I'm being too harsh. Let me know if this makes sense. Let me know if you've had experience with one or the other. Maybe there's something I'm missing. And just overall, I'd love your feedback and any questions. I'm happy to answer questions about this or really anything else related to marketing, entrepreneurship, business, sales, investing, or even just having an awesome life, which is what I'm all about. If you're new to my channel, I said this earlier, I'll say it again. This is a channel that's devoted to helping people have an awesome life and figuring out ways to pay for it and improve our lives personally, professionally, and physically even. So if that's in your wheelhouse to do with your life, I'd love your subscription. If you want to hit that button, you can subscribe and get the rest of my videos as they come out. Make sure to click the little bell so you get notified when new videos come out, and we'll keep the conversation going. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you on future videos. Take care.